Hello everyone, so good to see you. So, Mario and Luigi has been out for over a week now, and we've seen all kinds of comments, discussions, reviews about the game that's been very divisive amongst fans, old and new. The most divisive one I think we saw that started to set off our alarms was the one from IGN giving the game a 5 out of 10. And I think from that point, a lot of us were wondering, is this going to be the return to form that we hope for? I think it was the combination of that specific review combined with a lot of positivity and other views that were just questioning where the series was going. Because at this point, there's a lot of people who just haven't played a Mario and Luigi game in a very long time. It's not even done by the same developers at this point. Alpha Dream is no longer a part of Nintendo. And so a lot of that team went to Acquire, who would develop this game. This is also the very first 3D home console Mario and Luigi game, which is a first for the series, and so there's a lot of new things diving into this one in particular, and I was curious to know what the people thought. And so I went onto BlueSky and asked all of you, what do you think of Mario and Luigi Brothership? What are your impressions, your thoughts, your hot takes? What do you think is positive about it, negative about it? And what's your overall score out of 10? And we're gonna bundle all those reviews together, and we're gonna see what average score BlueSky gives this game. But before that, I wanted to go through some key comments that I found on here, because it's more interesting to talk about a game that's very divisive one way or another than just me talking about it myself. So let's go ahead and get started with the first comment we have here. The first comment I wanted to highlight is about Luigi himself, and it's by Michael H. Art, who is saying, probably not a hard take, but Luigi's feeling a lot more automated in the overworld, and the whole Luigi not being able to select commands with the B button, that messes up with my muscle memory so much, but that's really my only major hiccup with the game. Other than that, easy 9 out of 10. That's the major thing I wanted to point out from the very beginning, is that Luigi, for some reason, if you play Mario and Luigi ever since Superstar Saga, if you play Mario and Luigi ever since Dream Team, which was the last game that came out, you'll know that Mario is always affected by the A button, solely the A button, in the overworld, in battle, and Luigi is always the B button. And that is mostly true in Mario and Luigi Brothership. Mario will jump around with the A button, Luigi you can make him react with the B button, but when you're in battle, and this is the one that hurts me the most, when you're in a battle, you have Mario with the A button, it's all fine and good and dandy, sure, it's the same as it's always been. Luigi, you need to press the A button to confirm what he does, and then you have to press the B button to do that after. And I swear there are so many times in which I have pressed the A button for his command because my brain can't react fast enough to switch back and forth. And it's even more confusing because all your basic attacks are pretty much like Bros moves from the original games, where it's Mario and Luigi acting in tandem. So you have to press A, and then B, and then A, back and forth to have them, do maximum damage. And it's confusing with Luigi, especially at first, because I keep on messing up and thinking that he's the A button, or I'll press the B button on his turn, and it won't do anything because it's not the right one. It's just confusing, It just feels like they didn't really think this all the way through. There's not even an option in the settings. I think if you go to settings, the only option there is to turn rumble off. And it's so easy to make it so that Luigi reacts with the B button in battle instead. It's so small, and people who are probably new to the series probably won't even care or really understand why a lot of us are getting upset. But in the long run, design-wise, it's very confusing for returning players at times, and I'm sure a lot of us got used to it. I mostly have gotten used to it by now, but it still feels just kind of weird. And it's one of the things that make me feel like Luigi was kind of an afterthought in this game, in some cases, not in all cases, but we're gonna go on and continue on from there. AJB is saying, I'm 20 hours in and enjoying it more than most. It cuts down on the bloat from Dream Team and Paper Jam for sure. Combat is a highlight, big fan of battle plugs, adore the visuals, and this is my hot take, I think the OST is my favorite since Superstar Saga. My only major gripe is I wish it were funnier, 8 out of 10. Now we're going to be talking about some of these later on, like the combat and OST, but I wanted to highlight AGB's gripe with the script and how they wish it was funnier, because it's true, it's not as funny as it used to be. The Paper Mario series has gotten funnier and funnier as time went on. Origami King and Color Splash are hilarious in its writing, wonderful dialogue. And the Mario and Luigi series was also just getting better and better as time went on. I think it's the most consistent from Superstar Saga all the way up to Dream Team. I'm going to talk about Superstar Saga a lot, but there's something about Brothership where the writing just doesn't really feel the same. It doesn't have that same like edge to it, that wit, that soul, because we have different people working on the game this time around, and it's not the same as it used to be. There are moments where I'm reading the dialogue and it's just like, this is a little cookie cutter. There's bits and parts that I think it wants to be funny and it's not, like when you pull out that turnip man that comes out of the ground and he gives you some dad jokes, and it's like it's meant to not be funny, so then it becomes funny, but it's just not funny in a dull way. And it just kind of falls flat on itself. It's unfortunate because like there's a lot of characters that I think they're portrayed the best in the Mario and Luigi series, like Bowser, or he's also portrayed very well in the Paper Mario series. But yeah, that's definitely a lowlight. I've come playing these games to laugh, and I haven't really laughed as much as I feel like I should have. There are some good gags in there, I think. The extension core, I think, has a interesting dynamic, and they've made me chuckle a bit, but otherwise, I don't really see myself being too engaged in the writing in this leading up to the end. But moving onward and talking about the soundtrack itself, is Thomas, who says, the soundtrack is good and all, but the fact that Yoko Shimomura isn't involved hurts the excitement, honestly. The battle themes, the field themes, none of them have that unique style that Shimomura brought to the table in the past, like with the DS games. That's definitely something I've noticed quite a bit. This time around, the soundtrack is helmed by Hideki Sakamoto, and, it's hard to go from someone who's been with this series since the very start, ever since Superstar Saga, Partners in Time, Bowser's Inside Story, Paper Jam, Dream Team. It's a lot of titles to lead up to. And then now we have Brothership, which is just helmed by somebody else. Helmed. But yeah, that soundtrack is, it has a more big band feel to it. I was playing the game and I'm thinking to myself, what would this sound like if Yoko Shimomura did it? And there are just a lot of themes there that are just kind of, unfortunately, a bit forgettable in comparison. Like, Partners in Time is probably my least favorite of all the Mario and Luigi games, but I remember that battle theme very well. I don't know what it is, but there's just something about all the battle themes throughout these games that they stick with me, or at least some of them do. And I haven't really felt that with this game at all. I mean, there's some nice themes in there, here and there, but nothing that I can feel myself just like humming in the background when I'm hours after playing the game itself. But yeah, it's unfortunate that Yoko Shimomura isn't involved in this team anymore, and I don't know if they will be in the future if they decide to do more Mario and Luigi titles. She always gave it that unique touch, and I always looked forward to playing these games. It's a whole combination of things, right? It's the humor, it's the catchy music, it's the charm and wit that they bring. And that's not to say that this game doesn't have any charm and wit. It just has a standard that's really high from previous titles that it just doesn't really live up to with this one. Our next comment here is by TTTTTSD. I'm sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. A little slow to start and definitely long in the tooth by the end, but the middle was a great experience. All things considered, for the first time a new developer has been at the reins, it's solid. 7 to 7.5 for me. Pretty fun. Hopefully the next entry is paced a little better. And I think that's something we need to keep in mind for this series. This isn't Alpha Dream anymore. Like, sure, there are members of Alpha Dream who have moved on to Acquire to help develop this game, but it's kind of not realistic to imagine that this game is going to feel exactly like the other games as well. The visual style, which is amazing, the animations are fantastic, but there's something about, moving from the sprite-based compact world we had on our handhelds to a full home console game. And that's one of the many leaps that this game has taken. We're not going to have the same kind of feel, the portrayal of these characters as we had beforehand, because it's not exactly the same team. There's traces of that, and we do definitely see some things that are, expanding upon what we've had in the past. I think this battle system is one of the best, if not the best, in the series, but unfortunately, as we're also seeing in this comments, and I agree, I wish it was paced a little bit better, because it does take a long time to expand and get to, the full range of options you have within a battle. If they decide to do another Mario and Luigi game in the future, I think they'll be able to take some of the criticism that they're getting from the series right now and hopefully apply it for an experience that feels a bit more streamlined like earlier entries, but I still think it's a fairly competent game, all things considered. Our next comment is by Gooby Jello, who is saying, the animation highlights how close the bros are. It starts slow and you're given new moves sparingly, but I feel like the same was true for past games. Playing this one feels familiar to a classic replay. Clearing islands makes for satisfying small victories, building up to a big conclusion, 8 out of 10. The animations are amazing in this, by the way. I've already mentioned it, but they're so good. They're so fluid. They've had that like stretch and bounce to them in a lot of cases. The highlights are definitely not just in battle, but also out of it too. Within cutscenes, you see how these brothers are really just very close to one another, and they do little moves and dances and things with one another after accomplishing something, and it's just very wholesome. And it's nice to have more games that show how much personality that these two have and how much that they care about each other. We haven't really seen the two brothers really interacting at this level of affection toward one another as brothers ever since the Mario Brothers movie. And as they're also saying, it's slow to start and you're given new moves sparingly. That's another thing I wanted to point out. I kept thinking back to a game like Superstar Saga, how fast do we learn moves in comparison to that one? It's fairly fast paced, but you learn your first bros move quickly. It does take a couple of hours to get your hammer. Being on the Game Boy Advance, it's also a title that loads very quickly. Another issue we're going to address very shortly. But it just feels like this game gets a lot of scrutiny for being released in the era that it has been released on. And we're a little bit impatient, it feels like. But moving onward, we also have Vedron, who is saying, it has some glaring issues, but it's still a very fun game at its heart. Slow burn opening, repeated animations kind of get old after a while, Luigi not being fully controllable, and some glaring performance issues. Yet I'm having a good time with the gameplay and dialogue. Solid 6 out of 10. And overall, of all the comments that I read, I think this is the one that aligns with my thoughts of this game the most. It does take a while to get moving, and you don't even get something like the battle plugs until a fair number of hours into the game. And, you know, over time, maybe the animations do get kind of old. You know, something that I wish that we were able to do was just do our normal, like, jumps and hammer attacks. The ones where they work in tandem for jumps and hammer hits, I feel like that could have been a form of bros moves that uses like maybe 1 or 2 BP, just a small amounts. The bros attacks actually themselves should still be, you know, as expensive as they are, using like 4 or more on average. I don't know, that's just a weird thought that I had that could have probably helped to make those attacks where they're working together feel a little more impactful. But yeah, as a big Luigi fan, I am pretty annoyed that he's not fully controllable in most situations. He's pretty much just automated by whatever Mario says he should do with the L button. Of course, it's the L button. But yeah, overall, I think it's a fairly good time. It's enjoyable enough as it is. It's not offensive to me or anything, but there are some issues here and there that could be addressed in the future. In comparison to a review like that, I wanted to highlight Dan and Twistles, who's saying, take the single worst opening to a Mario and Luigi game, almost utterly devoid of the charm and humor of previous entries, for example, Superstar Saga's excellent introduction, that makes for one hell of a bad first impression. It gets better as it goes on, of course, but it was a slog to motivate myself to play, 7 out of 10. And I think it's really interesting that for as negative, quote unquote, that this take is, you still give it a higher score than Vedron, who answered previously with mostly positive things to say about the game. The reviewed scores are just kind of silly, to be honest. I just wanted to get everyone's scores to see just how much it aligns with the average user or a Metacritic, for example. But yeah, the intro, it does take a while to get started. The humor is kind of not there. I do think there is more charm than we're giving it credit for. You know, I do see most of your points here. It might seem a little bit repetitive at times when you always hear Mario and Luigi babbling to each other or saying each other's names. I swear I'm tired of hearing Luigi saying Mario every like 5 or 10 minutes or so. But yeah, the pacing, it does get better as the game goes on. Once you finally get into the groove of it, you do have a better paced game, but it takes a while to get there. And I totally understand why somebody would feel that way. Chicago Cub is saying, I think it's silly that it's not co-op. That's what I'm saying. That's what we were all saying. When this game was announced, Brandon and myself were looking at this trailer and we were like, oh my god, can we play together? Because it looked like you were controlling Mario and Luigi, you know, separately, but it looked like you could have been able to use them in a co-op situation. Right now, the game is just Mario and Luigi. You know, sometimes this feels like an actual representation of how important these brothers are within their own game. Sit. Sit. Sit up. Unfortunately, there's a lot about the game that you'd have to rework and redesign to make Luigi function, because a lot of it is designed for him to function autonomously. But there's definitely some precedence for having this kind of gameplay. If you have the original Superstar Saga on the Game Boy player, you can connect two different controllers and they both can control single player at the same time. And so you can assign player 1 to just press A for Mario and the other character to just press B for Luigi. It's kind of a roundabout way to do it, but it is possible. Moving on from that, we have Chrono Katie, who says, I think the game picks up a lot after you unlock the plug system. I'm really enjoying it, especially the combat, but lack of enemy variety and the much less sharp writing do hold it back a bit. I do agree with pretty much everything that's here. A lot of the strategy does open up once you have the plug system, because you're able to mix and match and find unique combinations that have their own effects. You can unlock and develop more plugs as time goes on, and it really makes the combat a lot more layered. It's surprisingly very snappy, because in battle you can just go straight over to your menu and switch your plugs as you want freely. It doesn't cost a turn. When one runs out, you can just swap them right away and let another one recharge, and it's really cool. It's really awesome to see how you can augment your battle this way, and it's like having badges without actually having any badges, and that's always going to be a plus from me. That's just one of the layers that helps to make combat some of the best of the series. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of enemy variety, as they're saying as well. You're like fighting the same ones multiple times, like those birds, those dang snaptors. Oh my god, I'm so tired of fighting those. And I feel like that was the only thing I was fighting for a stretch of the game. Yeah, once you get to like a separate ocean, there's like, oh, there's the enemy recolor, which is common in these kind of games, but there's a lot of recolored enemies that just have, you know, faster attacks or something, and it doesn't really add to the variety. Our next one is from Bisonhauer, who is saying, the animations, art style, and music rock. However, the load times are so long that I would have rather waited to play this on Switch 2. 6 out of 10. You know, it's weird how this game came out so close to the other Mario RPG remakes. You know, we have Super Mario RPG and the Thousand Year Door came out within the same year, within months of each other, really. And then we have a brand new title, Mario and Luigi Brothership, which it feels like that would have been a good contender to have on the next console. I guess they wanted to have something for the holiday season, but we're still being carried by a lot of Mario titles this year, whether they're new or remakes like Princess Peach Showtime, Luigi's Mansion 2, Paper Mario, of course. There was Mario and Donkey Kong earlier this year. A lot of Mario this year. They could have spaced that out. I'm wondering what's going to be on Switch 2. However, since the Switch 2 is going to be backwards compatible, hopefully for those that really feel that load time, it's going to be alleviated by being on a more powerful console in the next year. And this leads into what AG Silver is saying as well. Just under 8 hours in, and my hot take is that the load times, while common, aren't as bad as people are making them out to be. I think our current world of instant gratification makes waiting, no matter how insignificant, unbearable for some. Currently, I put Brothership at a 7.5. I am one of those people who don't really see the problem with the load times, especially going into battle and going out of battle. It's like at that perfect point where if it was just a brief moment longer, I'd be like, huh, yeah, this is taking a while, but it does load up fairly quickly. The longest load times I feel is when you move from one area to the next, from one island to the ship shape to another one, and so on. When it has to load an entire area, that's when it does take a little bit longer than usual. I think people are a bit overreacting on the load times between battles. That's my personal opinion. It's just like a few seconds, which it's not a big deal at all compared to, of course, anything on previous titles it's being compared to. The DS, the Game Boy Advance, the 3DS. That's going to load a lot faster, obviously, because that's a much smaller system and a much smaller cartridge. It's just me. Maybe I'm just dense and I don't really feel it as much. I'm someone who doesn't really notice frame rates at certain points either, so I'm just not as wise in those senses as much as other people are. But our next one is from Pounic Mania, who says, I don't know if this is a hot take or what status this is, but Brothership outright has my favorite Mario story ever. It starts off fast and seems simple at first, but themes of forming connections start to show. I never felt this connected to Mario NPCs and their growth before this game. The characters have been having a lot of scrutiny put under them. Do these plug people even have a name, or are they just the outlet community? I don't know. I still don't. If they said it, I probably wasn't paying attention. A lot of them aren't very interesting, to be honest. There's some that have, like, you know, familiar relationships. Connie is probably the one that has the deepest character development because you get to see some of their past with their mentor. Like, they'll go travel with you to the Great Lighthouses and they'll kind of just tag along. They don't really do anything except at the very end. They do kind of develop towards, you know, more and more as the game goes onward. And then you have the group of Idol that Peach is also, you know, very much involved with. The leader of Idol, funnily enough, does idolize Peach, and they kind of admire things about each other, and I think that's really cute. They go on and do things together. But yeah, there's not a lot of characters that really stand out to me in this game, you know? Some of the villain designs and their personalities stand out to me, I suppose. There's that big guy who always gets interrupted by everybody that talks. I'm just like, let the man speak! He has words to say, let him talk! It is very bold for you to say that this is your favorite Mario story ever. I'm curious what are the ones you played to compare this to, because yeah, I'm not too impressed by the story altogether. But if that is something that resonates with you, then I'm all for it, you know? I'm glad there are people that are appreciating this because I want this game to be appreciated by more people. But moving onward, we have Laid Back Kane, who's saying, the game becomes better and better the longer you play. Sadly, the performance also gets worse the more people join the ship. The strength of Brothership in comparison to the rest of the franchise is how level-based its structure. Each island feels like their own challenge. And I hadn't considered this until it was brought up here. A lot of people are complaining about how everything feels really small, that all the areas are really tiny, and it's not a large world map like the original Mario and Luigi games are. Pretty much all of them are its own world map. I think the most explorable one was Superstar Saga, and then they started to get more linear as time went on. Like, there was no reason to go back and visit, you know, other areas like you would in the Bean Bean Kingdom. Like, you go back to town to upgrade your stuff, go to the coffee shop, etc., and so on. Other Mario Luigi games, I don't think they really have that kind of level of, you know, return to a hub back and forth, or at least if they did, I probably don't remember. Maybe it was the Partners in Time or something when you go back to the castle. But it's really interesting to contextualize this game as, like, it's a bunch of worlds and levels. Like, the first island is World 1-1, and then World 1-2, and then by the time you get to the next ocean, it's like World 2-1, 2-2, and so on, because they all have their kind of condensed little stories. And some of that are more involved than others. One of the most recent ones I went to, there's like a crime has happened and you're trying to prove a couple innocence, for example. Each island does feel like its own thing, and you connect it all together, you do get the size of a world map if you were to squish all these islands into one spot. But I think it's the format that's throwing some people off, and that some people should be more mindful, is that it's very much level based, and you know, level based structures is what Mario and Luigi and the Mario series had its foundation on, basically. So maybe there's something to it. We're coming up near the end with Ziggy saying, I've played 20 hours and it's almost what I want out of a new Mario and Luigi game. The battling is spectacular and the art style pops, but the writing is meh and the lack of options is frustrating. I give it a 7 out of 10 as I think it's worth playing, but I hope they learn from this one and make the next one even better. A lot of things that we've already mentioned already. The art style is fantastic, the battling is spectacular, writing is okay, and there's not enough options. It's funny how we've kind of reached this point of, like, we're reaching Sonic levels of coping, in which we see the game, it looks fantastic, we're hoping for the best, we see reviews, we start to worry, we play it ourselves, some of the reviews are right, some of the reviews are wrong, there's a very divisive separation between the game, and we're hoping that they're going to take all the positive things that they learned from this game and apply it to the next one. And boy, doesn't that sound like the Sonic cycle to me. I'm really thinking that in this last year with rapid fire Mario RPG games, that they're trying to see what sticks, what works, and what probably does not work. And maybe in the future, they're gonna kind of combine all these games together with all the positive parts and put them into one new RPG or continuation of another RPG altogether. One I've always kind of conceptualized to myself was like one that kind of combined the Paper Mario aesthetic, but it's Mario and Luigi, and in battle they have 2 partners, and so in this battle system they can swap out their partners, but Mario and Luigi are always on the field, and it's like the stage is back with the audiences there, but it has more unique characters like the Mario RPG series does. Just all the unique things that make those series shine, kind of just smush them all into one thing. And I already have a logo. I've already shown it in another video some time ago. Paper Mario Brothers would be what I call it. And it's funny because these titles, they don't even convey that it's a Mario RPG game, like Mario and Luigi. Paper Mario, that it doesn't convey anything. Super Mario RPG is the only one that really told you, like, oh, this is a different style of game. I don't know what to expect from Paper Mario. Paper Mario is kind of a dumb name when you think about it. When you really think about it, Paper Mario is not a really good name at all. But it's what we grew up with. So, but yeah, whatever they learn from this, I hope that they take all those positive thoughts and ideas and criticisms and, you know, all that stuff and make something that's even better, combining all these ideas to whatever the heck they're going to make for the Switch 2. Finally, we have one from Foreman Spike, Building Buster. I dislike the fact that I, Foreman Spike, am not in this game. Nintendo can't keep ignoring me forever. You know, Spike, listen, you were in a Hollywood-produced movie. You were in a movie that millions of people saw. They broke the box office to see you, specifically you. And there's a lot of Mario characters that can't say that. You know, there's a lot of characters in this series, staples to the Mario series, that can't say that they've had that kind of screen time before. And I think you should take that to heart. You're very successful at what you do. We may not have seen you in a game in a long time, but people will remember you. When the time comes, you will be in another game one day. And when that day finally arrives, I'll be right there cheering you on. It is pretty interesting how many Mario characters appear in this game. Like, there's more people from the Mushroom Kingdom in here than I thought we were going to see when I got the game. We knew that Dory was going to be in the game from trailers, but there's more than that. There's even more to discover. Even in a game like Superstar Saga, which doesn't even take place in the Mushroom Kingdom, it takes place in the Bean Kingdom. You still saw characters like Yoshi and Birdo and more out there. And yeah, it was really cool to see. I don't know how much of a deep cut they want to do in the future, but if you want to add Foreman Spike, go for it. I don't freaking know or care. This is your world now. We still haven't seen Wario and Waluigi show up in these, and I'm just wondering, like, why? This is the era. Like, if you can show Daisy in a mainline Mario game with Super Mario Bros. Wonder, you can show Wario and Waluigi in a game like this. Wario and Waluigi got more representation in Mario plus Rabbids than they ever did in the Mario and Luigi series. This is food for thought right there. But I think that's enough for now. Thank you all so much for participating with this. I got over 100 comments in a single day telling me all your thoughts and opinions of this game. And if you want to know, out of all those comments, there were 63 people who told me what their scores were. And averaged all together, BlueSky would give Mario and Luigi Brothership a total of 7.6 out of 10. It was really interesting to read through all your impressions, reviews, and hot takes, because sometimes there was one that seemed very negative and it scored higher than someone who was a lot more positive on the same game and same topic and subject. And it just reminds me that reviews are just kind of dumb, honestly. Like, don't take IGN's 5 out of 10 to heart, okay? I would like to remind you that this is also the same exact website, the same exact organization that gave an 8.3, a score of 8.3 out of 10 to Paper Mario Sticker Star. When it comes to reviews or impressions or anything like that, I would say just go to someone that you trust the most, that you believe is going to have the most valid opinion that lines up with you. And it just takes some research. And maybe you don't even care about those reviews at all. Maybe you just see the characters and you see the series like, oh, it's Mario and Luigi. I want to play that. I want to play a new Mario and Luigi game after 9+ years. And that's valid too, you know? Sometimes you jump right into a game not looking at any reviews. I did it all the time, and I'm just easy to please, I guess. But at the end of the day, your opinion matters to somebody. And who knows, maybe someone here, someone's specific comment or our collective review is going to help you decide whether or not you want to play this game. So thank you all so much for joining me on this miniature journey through reviewing a game. I'd like to do more reviews of this sort in the future. Maybe I'll invite somebody else to help discuss this with me, because I feel like I was rambling for quite a bit, but it's nice to do so every now and then. If you want to keep up with everyone on Good Vibes Gaming, down below, we usually have our connected accounts to Twitter, but for this video, and maybe for ones in the future, I'm going to connect you all to our BlueSkys instead. just seems the most right thing to do, specifically starting with this video. So if you want to follow us, all the crew at GVG and the GVG account itself, please take a look below. Follow us on that. The other links are the same as always. You can support us on Patreon. You can also find mostly me on Twitch, not only just on the GVG cast on Friday, but also playing games on Thursdays and Tuesdays as well, sometimes with friends and whatnot. So please join us. We're going to play Mario Party Jamboree here and there. It's always a fun time. All right, everyone, take care of yourselves and safe sailing out there. Till we meet again.